museum. Hello guys, Liam right here, back from our video. Today we're doing part 2 of building the I-401 submarine, which is this hull right here. I did some modifications earlier, but now we're about to add the deck and the superstructure to the ship. So, hope you may enjoy. We're ready to attach the deck to the I-401 submarine. Now, you usually could use hard cardboard pieces, but sometimes they always get a bit bulky and stuck. So for this one, I'm going to use cardboard paper instead. In fact, you don't know cardboard paper, it's that you can actually just rip it out of the cardboard pieces and just have a thin piece of paper here. I got one left, so which means that we're going to need to trim it into the same size of when we're actually going to build our submarine here. Before you actually add in the deck, it's important to make sure you actually got the edges of the entire hull of the submarine straightened out so it won't cause any more bumps. Deck, you first need to make sure you need to have the tracing correctly on the sub. So likely you need to have it straight where it's supposed to be, and later once it when you're doing the bow first of the I-401 submarine, you first need to mark down the markings on where you actually wanted to cut the pieces of the sub first. Once to that, you need to use a ruler, either wood or metal, but you're going to use a metal ruler. You actually just trace a line maybe around halfway so you leave the rest for the rest of the decks. After that, you need to put the sub upside down to make the lettering correctly. You want to actually can tilt your head on a desk to make sure you align this sub correctly. Then after that, by a little bit, you now could draw the rest. You can actually adjust the carvings for a bit. Now let's begin to cut. Before you actually begin to add the decking to the submarine, it's important you better make sure there are no bumps or skulls so it won't mess up your sub. And you may need a pair of tweezers to cut some loose glue so you can level all the way to its side. Yeah. That was good. Now let's begin gluing. Now we finished with the entire bow, which also has to be surrounded by the catapult. Now we're gonna do the stern of the ship, which is pretty easy. Just put upside down, then later you just draw the entire sub. done. However, it's not kind of perfect, but it can be perfect or imperfect sometimes. But for now, we're going to now work on the internal structure of the ship, and also we need to build the hangar system and also the catapult. Pieces are actually somewhat in a big square base, but for the submarine they actually have these curvature ovals on their sides to have them store the aircraft. So for that we're gonna need to make the a square shape where the area there where the aircraft was stored. After that we'll begin placing down the curvable shapes that the cover part for the submarine when it was not launching aircraft. To make the the hangar space where you actually put the sub, you may have to actually make these to the exact same size. You actually have a picture which is actually nowhere. It's actually on the wall, but you actually have a picture. You actually just use a short piece of cardboard to many sizes to actually measure out how thin you need to cut these pieces that they actually fit like a hangar space. Like you're stacking them together like a big brick. Now, you may already know the shape, you may already know the history of the submarine, but if not, the I-401 submarine was the second of the 400 class submarines. They're actually a type of submarine aircraft carriers, which they're actually secret to the Japanese. 18 were actually planned to be built, 5 were constructed, but only 3 were made. Those 3 submarines were later put into use during the battle before World War II actually ended. They were supposed to attack a small island off the coast of the South China Sea, but by the time they were being deployed, Japan surrendered and World War II actually ended. By the time World War II actually ended, the Japanese actually surrendered their subs, including the I-401, to the US Navy. After their surrender, the US Navy later got on those subs, thinking they're actually cargo subs, but later they found they're actually aircraft submarines. Later, the US deemed them a total secret weapon, knowing they could actually launch surprise attacks, and to prevent them falling into enemy hands, they actually decided to sink all 3 submarines, with the I-401 submarine being sunk at Hawaii. Have some of these markings there where it actually show mostly like a lot of stuff like the search area, the hangar system, and also the curvature areas, and also their conning tower. So there's going to be some pieces I may need to just place down and actually cover it up. So here is likely a montage of it. actually correct, but instead of covering it with paper, you actually cover it with some glue actually. But sometimes you actually just heat up the glue, the dried up glue, and actually add some paper on it. So make sure you actually glue it very tightly. But now with the first part now done, now we're gonna move on to the other structure of the ship. Finish the whole structure of the submarine, but however it is getting late soon, and we'll be able to finish the nose up and also the conning tower before adding the oval shape to the submarine here, because we're trying to make the Arpeggio blue steel version. Alright, it's been like a couple weeks, but I did some modifications with the sub. Now we're gonna move on to the main structure and the conning tower. To where what the nose of the submarine where the planes we even just stored, but now we gotta make the nose of the cover before we can actually move on to the conning deck. This will take time actually. Our starter up, which means that we actually had to stack 2 cardboards each, and we had to trim them into the size of what the submarine does look like. You actually have a computer on the side, but you don't want to show it. You got to use the 3D models of the real life submarine. Now we're going to move on to the small part. After that, we're going to move on to the bottom. What a real sub would really look like when during a battlefield, except this one has an aircraft system. But this is what the conning tower is supposed to look like. We could add some small details. We could try to do that. But for now, we're gonna move on to the bottom of the submarine. Now, when I watch Arpeggio Blue Steel, I-401 submarine, all the ships actually have this oval-shaped thing on the bottom, which is unknown for me, and I cannot find any symbol of what it's supposed to do. But mainly, it's likely their main power source, or likely the bridge of the sub. So for that, we're going to need to try to find something useful. I guess we're going to use paper again to make the oval shape underneath. Now, to actually build the oval shape at the bottom of the I-401 submarine, we may need some more cardboard paper. However, we can't use a bigger piece. So instead, we're just going to cut ours into 1/3 inch, I think. And it's the same thing. Now you have to carefully remove the paper on it. Alright, now we got ourselves a piece here. Now we're going to move on to our circle. Now, building the I-401 submarine oval shape down here will actually be a tricky part, since now you have to mark where you want to put it. Several tries, but I think we got the right oval shape what we wanted. Basically, you had to make like a small cone, then you had to wrap it around a submarine. Then you can fill out a little bit of glue or something else, until you got something what you usually wanted. So this definitely looks like the Arpeggio Blue Steel I-401 submarine. After we add some details, after that we're going to paint it. The scene you're seeing right now is actually building the thrusters, because they were trying to make the one from Arpeggio Blue Steel. Because in the Arpeggio Blue Steel, they actually use thrusters instead of propellers when watching the anime series. Done, we add the stabilizers, then layer the thrusters. Normally the original I-401 submarine actually had propellers, but in the anime series they add thrusters onto the ship. Now we're gonna add the weaponry, which there are actually two things. One, I'm gonna build the main artillery at the back myself. Two, the anti-aircraft guns. It's gonna be a tricky thing, but also a solution. I don't own any Japanese 1/700 scale models that you have, the Type 96 anti-aircraft guns. But using a 1/700 scale model of spare anti-aircraft guns from the model German battleship the Bismarck, I could definitely use the spare ones for the anti-aircraft guns. It sounds pretty weird, but these is the only way I could actually use the anti-aircraft guns. Alright, to make the main weaponry, you just need to add some small squares. After that, you can actually add a toothpick on it, which you have to trim off. Does look like the I-401 submarine with a few adjustments and also increasing of the bow with some small details and also adding the tail fin. But now with thing now done, it's time to paint the model. Grab every single blue color I can use, but somewhat I'm going to try to figure out on what colors to actually use for painting the I-401 submarine. Let the paint dry for maybe an hour, but in the meantime, we should start painting the anti-aircraft guns. Right color that I can use for the bottom, but the bad news is it's been soaking in water, I think, for quite a long time, so I'm gonna try to mix up some colors to make it look right. Alright, it's already the next morning, and last night I did add a second coat to make it a little bit brighter, but there's no footage or video. But now we're going to add a little bit brightness to the top side of the sub. Port side of the sub is now fully painted. Just need a little few more coats if you see any dark spots. But now we're gonna start painting the conning tower. The gun should be heated up, and we're gonna now add the anti-aircraft guns. Yeah.
We just add a little bit of this glue all the way.
That's good. We're just done with the entire superstructure. Now we just need to add some detail lighting to the submarine. However, adding the detail lighting is actually ain't gonna be that possible. Since you want to add real lights, you may need to destroy likely the entire ship. So for that, we're actually gonna use paint, likely a sky blue color, I think. The end of part 2. Part 3 will actually be the review and showing of how to actually add the detail to the sub. So you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notification bell to stay tuned for more videos. And I'll see ya in the future. Bye.